Good morning, my dear friends. Welcome to my new YouTube channel, UB Tutorial Classes. Today, in this class, we are going to study about your third semester syllabus, the first unit, acquisition of language skills. So, dear students, you know a little bit something about LSRW in degree level. So, today in this class, we are going to study one by one what are the language skills are here. The first one is listening skill. Then what is meant by listening skill? Listening, it's the first step of learning language, skill and an audio sense, dear friends. Then now let's come to the point. Then what are the language learning skills? Yes, before we are going to learn the language learning skills, we should be knowing something about the skills. To learn a foreign language or any language other than your mother tongue, a lot of efforts required. It does not come automatically like your mother tongue. To learn a language, the main skills required are listening, speaking, reading and writing. Listening skills. So listening skill is related to our audio sense. When any sound reaches our mind, it makes sense or mind interpret that sound into message. If our audio sense is not working properly, then the message can be misunderstood. Dear friends or dear students, is there any difference between listening and the hearing? Yes, a lot of difference is there in between listening and hearing. Listening and hearing are not the same. Hearing is the first stage of listening. Hearing occurs when our ears pick up sound waves which are then transported to our brain. This stage is our sense of hearing. Then what is meant by listening? Listening is a communication process and to be successful is an active process. In other words, we must be an active participant in this communication process. In active listening, meaning and evaluation of a message must take place before a listener can respond to a speaker. Therefore, the listener is actively working while the speaker is talking. Dear students, is there any objectives of listening skills? Yes, the objectives of listening skills are there. For example, objectives of listening: to learn, to increase one's understanding, to advise or counsel, to relieve one's boredom. We call it in listening to the music. Okay, so these are the objectives of listening skill. Dear students, now we are going to learn what are the sub-skills of listening skills. So listening sub-skills. Now let us study one by one. The first one is listening for guest. The first one is listening for guest. It is extensive listening for skimming. This happens when we listen to get a general idea about a topic. For example, listening to a summary of the day's news on the radio. The second point is listening for specific information. For example, this is when we listen to something because we want to discover one particular piece of information. Example, listening to weather report to discover the weather in your city. The third point is listening in detail. Yes, the third point is listening in details. It is the intensive listening for scanning. This is when we listen very closely, paying attention to all the words and trying to understand as much information as possible. For example, a member of jury listening to a statement from a witness. So such as there are some other sub-skills of listening skills are there. They are listening for attitude, extensive listening, then listening for individual sounds and the exercise. Dear students, now we are going to study about importance of listening skills. It is an important to understand the meaning and knowledge of language. And second one is an important to understand the concept of ideas, thoughts and feelings. The third one is it is a main skill to develop other language skills. And the fourth one is it is an important to understand the literature effectively. So now let's come to the fifth one, dear students. It is an important to understand the using teaching methods and techniques effectively. Next one, it is an important to understand others people, ideas, thoughts and feelings. And the last one is to enable the students to listen carefully, correct pronunciation and modify our pronunciation, because the pronunciation is the most important aspect in learning language, because how the teacher pronounces the words, the students should be learn that. So we should be careful, the teacher should be careful about the pronouncing the words. Then what are the precautions for listening skills? The first one is atmospheric silence. The second one is increase interest of students listening level. The third one is language should be clear and effective. And the most important, the fourth one is pronunciation should be correct and clear. And the fifth one is good sense organs. Good sense organs. So we have some other importance of listening skills are there. For example, a communication is not complete without effective listening, and also an attentive listener stimulates better speaking by the speaker. So that's why some of the people say that who has become a good listener, he will become a good orator. A good listener learns more than an indifferent listener. A good listener can restructure vague speaking in a way that produces clearer meaning. A good listener learns to detect prejudices, assumptions, and attitudes. So then, what is active listening process? Then what are the steps are there? Mainly, there are 5 steps are there in active listening process. For example, and those are hearing, filtering, comprehending, remembering, and responding. So now let us study one by one what the hearing it says, what the filtering it says. So hearing, the first one is hearing. What is meant by hearing? Hearing is the first essential step in the listening process and relates to the sensory perception of sound. The listener further processes the perceived sound. For learning to be effective, hearing needs to be done with attentiveness and concentration. The second one is filtering. The next step involves sensing and filtering of heard sounds. The heard message is categorized as wanted or unwanted. The unwanted message is discarded. The sense of judgment of the individual comes into play. That is, the filtering process is subjective and a person chooses to retain what makes sense to him. The third one is comprehending. The listener understands what the speaker has tried to convey. This activity can be described as absorbing, grasping, or assimilating. The listener uses his knowledge, experience, perception, and cognitive power. And the fourth one is remembering. The assimilated message is stored in a memory to facilitate future recall. And the last step is responding. Responding to a message takes place at the end of the communication, immediately after or later, to show that the message is being received and comprehended. So dear students, in the next point of learning skill, we should be know what is the difference between oral and oral skill. Dear students, oral means it only refers to pertaining to ears or listening, and oral comes from Latin aureus, meaning hears, and oral is used as an adjective. And if we know something about the oral refers to pertaining to mouth or speaking. Oral comes from Latin oralis, meaning mouth. Oral is used as an adjective and a noun. Dear students, and the main important aspects and the main important thing is materials and resources for developing the listening skill. They are storytelling, dialogues, situational conversations, role plays, simulations. We call in Kannada Patra Abhinaya ಅಥವಾ ಕಪಟ ವೇಷವನ್ನು ಹಾಕುವುದು. And the next point is speech and also games and context, language, laboratories, pictures. So, dear friends, today in this class we have studied about the listening skill and what are the importance of listening skills and what are the sub skills of listening skills and what are the materials and resources for developing the listening skills and also the difference between oral and oral skills. In the next class we have to learn the second part of is. What's that, dear students? The second part of is listening skill. After the listening skill we have to study the reading skills. Okay, thank you one and all.